21. Can we do roll call?
Yes, Jerry Cabasco is not here at this point. Kirsten Erickson.
Here.
Robert Perry.
Here.
Tracy Smedilla is not here tonight. Annette Gutenkopf. Joel Laporte.
Here.
Adam Lewinsky.
Here.
Michelle Hughes is not here. And Robert Gorski.
Here.
Great, that makes 6 people. We do have a quorum. A quorum is at least 5.
Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the approval of the June 14th, 2021 meetings. Any discussion? No discussion? All right. Would everyone like to go ahead and make a motion?
So moved.
All right,
I'll second.
perfect. We have a first and a second. Thank you very much, both of you. Public comment.
We do have a member of the public here tonight, and, okay, just taking it all in for now, but it's nice to have somebody here, thank you.
Would you like to introduce yourself or anything?
Sure.
Perfect.
My name is Karen. Sure. Although I could use my speaking voice. I wanted to.
You do.
My name is Karen Grell. I am a lifelong resident of Bartlett. Been here since 1955. So I have you all meet.
You do.
Former U46 teacher. I actually see a couple of faces. I think I have your children.
Yes, you did.
At Sycamore Trails. Also taught the last 15 years at South Elgin High School. So looking through this and talking about Bartlett High, don't forget, part of Bartlett goes to South Elgin High School. So I did retire in 2019. I don't know if I had a vision about COVID or what. I got out before I had to do all that. So I know Tracy Smudillo quite well. She was telling me about the committee, and she goes, "You should come sometime." I'm like, "Must have come last month, and I couldn't. I had another commitment. So I'll come tonight." And now she's not here.
We'll vouch for you that you're here.
Well, on behalf of Tracy, thank you for coming. I'm glad she invited you to come. Perfect.
Easily our biggest crowd, so
I'm just.
There you go. Well, we would welcome it. All right, nobody else? Nothing? All right, let's move on to the main topic for tonight, the branding discussion. The
Thank
request
you.
for proposal.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Erickson, and those of you here tonight. This is another discussion we started last month in earnest. We had mentioned it way back in January that it was something that we were contemplating. Really quickly, without going through the whole story of it, the Never Far Away branding logo that you see up there in the corner was one of my first projects assigned in 2005 through the EDC, and we had brought in a consultant at that point who nearly every community in the area was retaining for branding at the time. The company was called Visual Edge out of Arlington Heights, and they did a nice job coming to the EDC meeting a bunch of times, and things weren't as technologically advanced as they are today, so there wasn't a whole lot of public input back then, besides some invitations to come to the meetings, but there wasn't a whole lot of input, and ultimately it was the EDC that had selected that slogan, as well as a depiction, actually a different depiction than the one we use now. I'm going to go back. We originally had where this church is on the left side of the logo, originally was a clock tower that was to be built in the town center, but never, ironically, now there's a clock tower, but not built by the town center developer. And don't have to tell you what the item is on the right, and in the middle is the train station. The train station was brand new back in 2005. So this branding has served us well. It replaced the Bartlett pear branding that was used where everything had pears on it for a number of years before I came aboard. So we started talking about updating the branding for the village. And by branding, not just talking about a slogan and a logo, but actually launching into a branding campaign to advertise more, to consistently use the same type of messaging, and to come up with something that better reflects Bartlett in 2021 and beyond than just trying to convince people that we're not too far away for them to consider coming here. As technology has changed and there's been multiple recessions and a pandemic, the never far away is pretty tired at this point. So we've been looking to launch this branding campaign. So what you have in your packet tonight is a request for proposals. It's in I call it draft form still. This is the third draft. I spent quite a few hours crafting it. And I wanted to tell you I'm a big believer in not necessarily reinventing the wheel. So we're not the first town that's gone through rebranding, and we're certainly not the last. So I did some research and obtained some RFPs from other communities in the area that have gone through it. Even Hanover Park recently went through it about 2 or 3 years ago with a global village branding campaign and a new logo. I looked at some other communities. I think Highland Park was one of them, some downstate communities like Springfield, and a former village employee who's the administrator over at North Aurora went through that as well about 4 years ago, and he sent to Scott some information and shared it with me. So what I've tried to do, the draft you see in front of you is some of the best items from some of these other ones. It's kind of a merger of a couple different RFPs. And what I did for tonight's meeting, instead of reading through the whole RFP to you, which you can all review, hopefully you've had a chance to review it and can review it again at your leisure, is to talk about 7 of the points that were brought up, plus I'll add just a few more that didn't make it. So last month we talked about what the objectives would be. Several commissioners asked that in various ways, and it's still something really we're trying to drill down to some point. I spoke about how this is the Economic Development Commission, and we deal with a lot of business-oriented items, mostly business. It wasn't something we were looking to use necessarily to attract more residents to the town, although that could certainly be an element of it. As facts and statistics would have it, if you build 200 more units in Bartlett, they'll fill. If you build 500 more, they'll fill with residential. So attracting residential developers isn't a big challenge, and attracting new residents really isn't a great challenge for the village. The bigger challenge, of course, is trying to fill every commercial space that's available, trying to attract new commercial development, and trying to attract things like the elusive second grocery store and other uses that we don't have in the town. So from my perspective, it's largely about attracting business and investment to the town, but also business retention. I should mention, it's not just attraction. This will be used extensively, maybe even more extensively, for some internal and local marketing. Things used to promote our local restaurants, things to promote our shopping, not just on Small Business Saturday like Nan said last month, but various holidays, various events that are held. Bartlett has a lot of events. If you keep looking in the right places, through the Park District, through the various not-for-profit corporations, just had probably the biggest one of the year, was just a couple weeks ago. But National Night Out coming up, lots and lots of opportunities to promote local events and what I would call tourism. to energize and inform residents and to enhance the village image. Of course, a large part of branding, people think about Nike and Coca-Cola and Disney and all the brands, Apple, that everybody knows, and they're consistently branding a certain way. And on a much smaller scale, towns like Bartlett, can consistently brand themselves too, but not just for developers, not just for eating and drinking, but over a wide scope of things. So the scope of this has changed, I would say, as I researched it. I think Commissioner Laporte last month suggested researching other communities, which of course we did, and I found that most of their branding campaigns are very wide-ranging. It's not just business attraction. Although towns that are hurting a lot for that mostly do focus on that. Number two, I wanted to point out, this is a multi-year branding campaign. I don't anticipate whatever branding we come up with that most likely will go into early next year is something that's going to last throughout all the 20s and into the mid-30s. You never know. But what we're actually looking to do differently this time than just the new logo and slogan is to do a consistent, planned marketing campaign. And so that's something we'll be talking about, maybe not every month at the EDC, but every couple months, probably quarterly or so. We'll say, here's some of the branding we've done. Maybe we will go into a housing publication. Maybe it will be, mostly social media focused, but it can go over a wide range of things. We can go into different event guides. So it's a multi-year thing that we're looking to do. So also that goes along with what you would see in the RFP was not just asking for a consultant to do a one-shot, get us our new branding and you're out of here, but to help coordinate a multi-year campaign. As you know, myself and Scott, Joey, other staff here have a lot of things that we do besides marketing the village, and bringing on a consultant that we engage with regularly could help energize that. Somebody we can call every month or every other month and say, hey, Scott's thinking of going into a multifamily type of publication. Hey, I want to go into like an industrial publication. So we can have somebody who's well-versed in that to help guide that. Number three, I just wanted to mention a video, something we want to put in there. We've done some videos. Our guest tonight spoke about working at U46. A few years ago, we had students from South Elgin High School video program put together a video, which I was going to say was very nice, but was high school, good high school quality. And it's something that we're looking to do, a video, what I'm going to call a base video, and then something we can also build off of that. I put in there up to 3 minutes. I saw some other towns wanted 5-minute videos, and I simply can't imagine somebody watching. It's hard for me to imagine somebody watching a 3-minute video about a town, but it's that much harder for me to imagine somebody sitting through 5-minute video of the town. And I've had a lot of video production companies send me videos as examples, quite a few, and they do the 5-minute ones, and it's not so snappy, We want to see them a little bit more like a commercial. Figure somebody's going to click off of it after a minute or a minute and a half. So you want to start on it. You want to capture somebody's attention right away.
Why do 3 minutes then?
I just lowered it. Myself and our management team that reviewed it thought that 3 minutes is good because it could cover a variety. Not just here's our residential, here's our nice restaurants, go a little bit into our industrial. We could change it to say maybe do 2 shorter ones, or one that's more, maybe industrial is something that's really kind of a niche thing. Everybody likes to hear about restaurants and bowling alleys and breweries and stuff like that, but not everybody likes to hear about auto supply chain businesses and food businesses and stuff like that. But I think 3 was just simply a number that we thought was, if we're going to pay somebody thousands of dollars, that, we should get something fairly tangible and evergreen that can last.
Yeah, 3, then it down to 30 seconds or something, because I totally agree. Nobody's watching a 3-minute.
Right.
Not happening.
We'll take that under advisement. Do the other commissioners think that same thing, 3's a little too long?
3's long, 30 seconds might be too short, because I think that you need a consistent theme and then branch off. And I'd like to see like 3 different ones focusing on like family things and what they can do, the industrial, but have a common theme that launches it and then it branches.
I like that idea.
You could also, like, if you had your 3-minute spot, and there's a place maybe for that, but I think of Bedford Park when they were on the radio and they were on the television, and they literally were doing the exact same thing, just advertising their town. So they had some shorter spots, and then depending on how much commercial time they bought, they could go a minute. So you could have your 3-minute spot, but as long as it can be parceled so that it can be, it's one unit, but parceled in 3 ways.
Love it. We'll talk about that at staff before this gets sent out. That's a very good comment. Thank you. We'll definitely take that into consideration. Because again, even as somebody who's working on branding for a town, I don't really want to sit through a 3-minute video about another town. So I get it. Staff management of campaign, I wanted to point that out. That's something that changed between our first draft and second draft, to be honest, when our administrator reviewed it, that we're going to have them in the RFP. There's going to be deliverables, in other words, to us. One of the points I'll make kind of later on in this, but so it's turned over to us and not controlled by some branding agency. So, like I said, in that scenario where 2 or 3 years from now, things can change quickly, as you see in towns. And if we want to shift our focus for some reason or come up with some new type of thing, we want to have them turn it over to staff. So Joey can make an ad, Scott can make an ad, I can make an ad, somebody in another department can make an ad for their uses. So that's just something I wanted to point out is in the RFP. Shifting gears and just for a second, I had mentioned that as a member of the group Access O'Hare West, where we do joint marketing at trade shows, we had our first in-person meeting again after a year and a half. We had it last month, and we're going to have another one in about a week. And I had brought up one of the best things about this group is that we, besides talking about marketing our area, we bounce all kinds of ideas off each other. And I can tell you a lot of I wouldn't say it on the record, a lot of inside stuff of what's going on in other towns along that corridor. But I did mention that we were launching into a rebranding campaign, and a lot of the towns had done it. And one of the best tips I got was from them, saying to make sure that you have ownership and possession of the logo. Literally, our Access O'Hare West logo, we didn't get the vector files from the person. We had to track down some guy he's probably one of the best branding experts in the area, but we didn't have, it took us a while to gain possession of the branding that we had paid for. So I just want to mention that, staff management of the campaign. So it's ultimately going to be ours, not a branding consultant's. Success in other municipalities is important. There's a lot of branding agencies out there. If you Google branding, you'll find every town has people who do all kinds of marketing, and a lot of them, label themselves as branding, and a lot of them do it, but municipalities are definitely a different animal than say an online business or some retailer or restaurant. So one of the things that kind of narrows down the scope fairly quickly is we're going to be looking for somebody who has experience in other municipalities. And the good news is there are enough of them around. It's not just 1 or 2 agencies. There's probably 10 to a dozen agencies in the Chicago market that have done branding. everywhere from Chicago all the way out to downstate. I suppose somebody will probably, I can't say who would respond to this, but you might get some out-of-state people. I know a lot of this work is done remotely, but I'm going to stress that we want somebody to come to EDC meetings, to make presentations. So it's at least my hope that we get somebody, in this area, in the Chicago metropolitan area. That kind of goes to my point number 6, that a lot of you have brought up over the 2 brief discussions we've had about this. We don't want it just to be bouncing ideas off the EDC. We put in there to do surveys or community stakeholder meetings or whatever the case may be. Surveys is important. I looked at some other towns' surveys, and we'll certainly do the same. With or without a branding consultant, we would do that. I always say the village has its own Facebook pages, our own website, and social media, newsletter. We'll make sure to engage other stakeholders and bring them. This will be through the EDC, I should mention. We'll have some people come present to the EDC. Last but not least point, somebody had asked, have we budgeted for this? I think Commissioner Gorski asked. So we have a marketing budget, advertising/marketing. That's a broad term. We use that to pay for trade shows. We use that to run print advertisements. We'll use it for this. This is a core marketing expense. And so we spoke about that again amongst our management team and thought that $10,000 a year budget, honestly, that's a lower amount than some places do. Some of the towns have double or triple that budget, but they do it kind of more, like I said, as a one-time shot. They hire somebody and pay them $25,000, $30,000, something like that. We're looking more of an ongoing thing. If it costs, I had a line item that stated budget with a mark, with a number on there. And again, that's something through the drafts that we took off. If you put a $30,000 budget down, every single response you get is going to be $30,000. So we're figuring a better way to go about it is it's kind of in the bullet points within the RFP that we'll be thinking of budgeting $10,000 per year on that. So like I said, there's more to it, but those going through it today, I thought those were the major points that answer some of the questions that were asked. And before I do ask for more comments, if there are any, I want to tell you it's my goal to send this out at some point next month. I've been thinking a lot about it. I want to give all of you at least to the end of the month to send any other, if there's something like me you think of in the middle of the night, or you're doing something else, and like the one comment you had about breaking the videos into shorter segments. If you have another thought or suggestion on it, I am going to ask you though, and for the commissioners who aren't here tonight, I'll ask them to send it to me by the end of the month. I would really like to get this thing tight, buttoned up, and out. I can't say exactly when it'll go out, and then but I would like for it to be sooner rather than later. And last but not least, I didn't put on there, I left blanks, when it's issued and when the due date would be. I'm thinking about a 6-week due date. We've gone longer before in RFPs. Quite frankly, most RFPs show up on the due date, but you still have to let people have some time. You can't expect somebody to get all excited about this and start working on it right away. You have to remind, if we send it out to those 10 agencies, we probably have to remind them 2 or 3 times about it. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking generically it could go out next month, and generically it could have a due date 6 weeks or so from when it goes out. So maybe I answered everything already, but if you have any other questions or thoughts, be glad to hear them.
I have one question, one comment.
Yeah.
On the project requirements part, The one piece that I didn't really see spelled out, and I don't know if you were as focused on this, was the idea of the implementation. That's something we had talked about last month. I don't know if that's something that you want to make that as a part of the project requirements, is to add implementation. So that's my question.
It's a good question. It kind of, I'm going to say it kind of beats around the bush with that in some ways, but I think you raise a good point that making sure that word's in there and making sure somebody knows. I put that in there. The way I addressed it is by kind of having somebody quote what their hourly would be over the period of time. But you know what, I think I will carefully phrase another bullet point about implementation, what your plan is. I might not ask exactly for a schedule.
Right.
We want some flexibility, but like an implementation plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So the other comment, having done a few of these, the whole idea of agencies asking you questions. Now, you put on the last page, submittal and questions. I can't tell you what a nightmare
There'll be a
that's gonna
lot,
be.
yes.
Right. So what you really want to say is that the village reserves the right to call a meeting for the purposes of addressing vendor questions. All right, so you want to add that as a part of the language so that you have, if you start to get a deluge of these types of questions, that you say, hey, I'm going to call a meeting, we're going to address everybody at the same time, and get all your questions answered. And as long as you put that within your 6-week window, then everybody has time to go back, refine their proposals, and get them to you. But otherwise, you're going to be all over the place answering questions. The other thing about answering questions is if one agency asks you a question, you really should make it clear in the RFP that you're going to tell everybody what the question is and what the answer is, so that you're not getting the same question 5 times.
Those are both good suggestions, and it shows you're very optimistic on this. The key part of what you said in my mind is we reserve the right to do that.
Correct.
Because this is about my 7th RFP that I've done, and the last one I did only had 1 response, and we had to really kind of wring it out of somebody. So that's the kind of problem I hope that we have, is 4 agencies or 5 or 6 or 7 calling with lots of questions. If that's a good suggestion, though. I did see, I mentioned Highland Park is one of the ones I modeled this after. They had on their RFP a frequently asked question kind of section. More or less, the person answering the questions will be me, but I'll put that more clearly in there. And you're right, the questions will probably be similar if there are some. If there are some, we're trying to make it relatively simple, but I like your point. If somebody asks a question and it's pertinent, that's something we would want to share with other possible respondents for sure. And again, like I said, we're hoping we get that kind of response. Sometimes we've done RFPs literally where we're lucky to get a couple of responses.
Tony, the other villages that you talked to, how many responses did they have to their RFPs?
Well, it kind of ranged from like 3 up to 7 or 8. But the ones that I would characterize as getting 7 or 8 kind of had probably not as detailed as we're going into and what we're talking about. And it was kind of just like a 2-page thing, like, hey, send us your, a couple of examples on how much you charge to do a logo and and a slogan. Honestly, a lot of the branding RFPs are for logos and slogans.
Right.
So they get a lot of responses. Any good marketing person can generate logos and slogans in a couple hours. There's even a lot of software that does that. So for something more detailed like this, probably on the lower end of those numbers. And for the ones that are just like, hey, help us come up with a new branding slogan and logo, then you probably would get 7 or 8 or more. And it wouldn't necessarily just have to be people with municipal experience. It could be anybody. So that's what I've seen. And I think the one that got the most was North Aurora that I looked. I can't remember. I didn't count exactly, but it looked like 7 or 8. And the prices were all over the place. They were from like 3,000 or 4,000 up to like 40,000.
Not sure how wordy this should be, but for the community profile, have you guys considered maybe one more paragraph saying what we have accomplished over the last 5 years, or something a little more optimistic for them?
I like that. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
Brewster
very
Creek Business Park.
statistical almost, like this is what we have, but, you know, and then not only what we've accomplished, but laying the groundwork through zoning or whatever. There's a bunch of things you guys can.
Oh, yeah, we can brag.
Yeah.
We can brag in that
I
section.
know you don't want to be too wordy with it, but as I'm reading, the community profile just kind of falls flat for me, I guess, when there's a lot more to talk about. And it doesn't have to be pages, you know, but something.
No, you're right.
Something exciting, you know?
That's a good point. I was trying to keep it very brief, but we could brag. You're right. It is pretty. It's about as dry as you can get. It's like, here's how many people, here's how many departments, and we could talk a little
First,
bit.
second, and third draft are usually dry. Now,
Yeah.
Now we start inserting things, right?
I mean, a lot of, when we talk about doing different videos, I mean, one of them probably would be all the dining and shopping opportunities, and that's dramatically increased here over the past years. And for sure, Brewster Creek Business Park, I mean, my God, I can't even tell you what it was like 15 years ago. When I started here, there were probably 7 or 8 businesses, and they were all along Humbrocht. You know, they were all right off of the first entryway sign, right on that first row, and they were mostly condos. So, yeah, Brewster Creek, probably should brag about Brewster Creek, and the other business parks a little
Yeah,
bit.
if you're reading it as an agency, they might be like,
Yeah.
what do we say?
Yeah.
When, if you give them a few
Yeah.
things, it might be like, this might be an easy one to sell, you know? I don't know.
Right, right. I think a lot of them, there's so much information online. Some of them will know everything about the town and do a lot of research, and you're right. Some of them will probably go, hey, this is generic, and I'm going to send my boilerplate thing to these guys. So that's a good point. We can definitely spruce that up a bit.
Tony, when you say multi-year, what does multi-year mean? Are we 3 years, 5 years?
Yeah, between 3 and 5, probably closer to 5.
So is $10,000 a year enough for what we're asking?
It may not be, but keep in mind with this advertising line item, we're not necessarily asking them to do the ad placement per
Right,
se.
right.
I mean, I didn't do it this year, but for years and years and years, I had an ad for Brewster Creek and Chicago Industrial Properties every issue. But you could have somebody design an ad one time, and then we could run it in various publications. We'll pay for the ad. So just so you know, the 10,000 is more for their help in designing, and I don't anticipate that would cover the advertising costs. So it could, and you know what? We do, I should also add this. We do a budget every year. You know, the village, every town budgets every single year. We weren't necessarily anticipating doing a branding campaign. So when we say 10,000, that's kind of the number I think Scott and I came up with that we think we could get this launched with during this fiscal year. If it's something where the board ultimately wants to do bigger ads or billboards or TV, we've done TV ads before, you know, then we might have to beef up that budget, you're right. The TV ads, again, shifting gears, for years we would show you the Small Business Saturday ads. We did some before around Valentine's Day. We did Dine in Bartlett this spring. Those Comcast ads are usually $3,000 to $4,000 a pop. They're very targeted. We've moved more towards social media advertising, as you know, than spending thousands of dollars on cable TV. But if that's something that, you know, we want to do, we'll have to budget for that. So that is, you're right, that's subject to change. I'm going to make a little asterisk next to that.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, okay, we're asking a lot for 10,000, and don't get me wrong, I agree, you put a bigger number, then that's where it's gonna come in. But we've got staff management of campaign, and we've got amazing social media. I mean, it's so funny when you look at our social media, so many of the comments are like, oh, that's so creative. I mean, we get as many comments complimenting how creative the idea was and the cute spin on it, that I think an asterisk is important there.
You know what, that's a good point. The board has always been supportive, since I've been here, of the EDC, of our economic development staff, when we ask for advertising funds. We've just cut it back a little bit this current fiscal year. We didn't spend all of our advertising funds last year, and in just general belt tightening across the board, we lowered our marketing line item for this year. That doesn't mean we couldn't add another 20, 25,000, at least in our request next year. And we always have to justify it. We do the line item budget, we justify it. Scott presents the administration department budget. And we can always put that in branding campaign as a line item request. We came up with that number the same way a household would almost, where we're projecting the similar budget as to what we have now. But if we could increase that, that would be a large portion. That would be almost all of our advertising budget. But maybe I'll write at least $10,000. But I don't know if we're in the position yet to really prognosticate if it would be 20 or 25,000 or something like that.
Why put anything? Is that part of what they require? I don't know anything about RFPs.
No, they don't require it. It's just a common element I saw among some RFPs, but not all. That's a good point.
Yeah, because
can-
I'm wondering, I mean, do you have to put it in? I mean, do you have to put it in there, or is there a way to say that there is a minimum, and then there's flexibility based on what your proposal comes forward with,
Right.
that there's additional robust funds available if we see value in something you're presenting?
True.
I mean, I don't know how to say that, there's a,
We'll have to talk.
you know what I mean? Yeah, depending on, that there's flexibility for additional add-ons, or I don't want to say à la carte, I don't know, but if they come up with something where we're like, we really want that, let's add that.
That's a good point.
Because I do, when I look at it, because I'm wondering, when we did Bartlett Never Far Away,
Well,
I want to say it was like $7,000.
it was something like
And
7,000.
it was just the logo.
But they didn't do any.
Yeah, and that's all they did, and that was
Yeah.
15 years ago. So I'm looking at, and, I mean, don't get me wrong, I sat here and said, I love that, let's vote for that. I want to say it was like 7,000 or 7,500, and it was just the logo, here you go, run with it. And now we're asking for so much more, I mean, obviously the world's evolved in the social media, and, I don't know how to say, we have a budget, we don't want to tell you what the budget is, tell us what you're going to give us, but that's what I really want to kind of put in there.
Additional funds available as needed or something.
Yeah. So somebody who's really
This isn't
good.
highlight that it's a recurring budget,
Yeah.
like a recurring budget allocated project.
That we're really looking to build a relationship with you. We really want you to dig in with this, and we want to keep this relationship while we're looking at changing it, and in the future, we'd like you to be the company. I mean, how do you say, I don't know how to put that into words.
Maybe we discuss that, like Tony said, that like we just want to launch it, and we only have a certain dollar amount this year, and maybe we mention that and then bring it up to other years.
Yep.
I mean, Elk Grove Village, for example, we want to be careful and not get, I mean, Elk Grove Village spent $400,000 on a bowl game a few years ago. So we don't want, 50 responses of like multi-million-dollar companies. We're thinking, like Tony said, somebody local. So yeah, we'll look at that wording. But in terms of this year and the money that we have this year, that's kind of important because that budget's already been passed.
We'll take all those under advisement and try to word that, either change it, eliminate the amount, and just see what comes in. That could be eye-opening, but or make, as I heard suggested, kind of a reference to, we anticipate this being a recurrent budget item. Okay, so we're not going to necessarily sign somebody for a 4-year deal like a professional athlete or something like that. But we can maybe enter into an agreement. Here's how much to help us launch it. Here's how much my hourly, work is, and that's similar to what we did through Access O'Hare West. We had the guy really who just did the one-time launch for us, but we still go back to him occasionally. We haven't since COVID started, to be honest, but we will again as we relaunch. And this is somebody who has an hourly fee, is a consultant, has his own agency, and is more or less independent. So we can call him next week if we need something tweaked, and he'll send us the bill, so to speak. So yeah, I don't want to get too hung up on that. Kind of like Scott said, we have to work with this year's budget, which goes through next April, and after that, I put together a large part of the budget when it comes to economic development, and we'll definitely talk about a good amount to put in there for branding, for sure.
Tony, I'm a board member at Bartlett Terrace Apartments, and we just did a video, added it to our website. Might be something you guys, if you want to put it up there, it's on our website, but obviously we're trying to attract tenants to Bartlett, and so a good portion of the video is things that you can do in Bartlett. It was 57 seconds long, and I'd have to look and see what it cost. It wasn't, it was expensive for us because we're a small association, but in the scheme of things, I didn't think it was that much money.
So good, I'll take a look at that. I think I've seen that before.
And
I'm not sure. I want to take a look, and if you could, share with me, just email who did it.
yeah, I mean, it's
I
online.
mean, it might not be somebody who does comprehensive branding, but it would be good for us to see who did that. That could be kind of a quick and easy way for us to get started on this.
I know him real well. He's my brother-in-law.
Okay.
But, yeah, if you pull it up, it's on their website, and he does drones, he actually hired a voiceover guy because it gives it a little more flair.
Can you pull that up now, Tony, if it's only 57 seconds?
I might have Joey come over here and X everything out and see if Google Chrome is open on this thing.
Joey to the rescue.
Yeah.
Is it on YouTube?
No, you just you can go to the bartlettterraceapartments.com. It should be on the landing page.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're online. I don't know if the sound is hooked up.
Yep, it is.
Okay. There it is. I like the looks of this already. Very nice.
Quick and easy. And we're at full occupancy.
It's good to think ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see your point of having multiple short videos like that instead of a 3 or 5 minute long one.
Yeah, I like a common theme that hits everything that we've got, you know, because we don't want to ignore our industrial park and our shopping and our residential. So I think you hit a highlight and then you just branch off of it. So it's got that commonality and they see, oh, there is more than just the apartments. There's this, there's that. And I think that it's, yeah. All right, any further discussion?
Sounds like to me, Tony, that the way I see it and hear it here is that there's going to be a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3. Phase 1 being design and process, I guess. And going into phase 2 is picking out the right design and process. Phase 3 might be implementation of phase 1 and phase 2.
That's accurate.
Is that the way it's going to go?
That is the way it's going to go, absolutely. I mean, I did write in there that, you know, somebody, if they're not familiar with the town's going to do a lot of their research, their own research. They'll work with our staff. We'll have to provide them a lot of information. I can only, again, go back to that we previously did that, you know, years ago, but more recently with Access O'Hare West. This guy we worked with, you know, each town provided him with information about our towns, kind of what we wanted to highlight. We came up with a template, and then, like you said, the third step to it was implementation. In our case with Access O'Hare West, we were focusing on doing trade shows jointly, and we did a broker open house one night. We do some joint marketing, but, you know, from there, each of us kind of goes on our own way. Remember, it's 10 towns, and we're the furthest west. We're really kind of past that 390, but that's the way we did it, yeah. 3-step process, but then it's ongoing. Like I said earlier, it can be tweaked for different things, whether it's a new apartment project we have, or whether it's a business park, or the opening of a new restaurant. Come dine Bartlett. So, yeah.
So you may have touched on this last week, but is there any examples of other RFPs that we can take a look at, that you can email us? You said you
Oh, yeah.
took some inspiration from a couple of places. Is worth thinking about it this month and giving suggestions.
If you'd like me to email other RFPs, I'd be happy to. It's
Yeah, just a couple
easy.
examples drawn, what's good and what's bad there.
Okay.
That would be helpful, I think.
Okay.
And it would keep us honest, that we'd have to open another email.
Right.
Know that we have homework.
Have a little more homework. We all do. I do too. I have a lot of good comments and
Moving in the
suggestions tonight. Does our guest have any comments or suggestions to add?
Well, I will agree with Mr. Gorski. I like the idea of, like you said, one commercial, making 3 different, you know, break apart, maybe 3 different things individually put out there. Because when you think about the list of things on the radio or television or whatever it might be, it's the same thing all the time.
Tune it out.
But if you have 3 different things going, and like a rotation, your ear's gonna catch that it's different. Like it will more people pay attention. I think that's the next idea. You know, at some point have a show and that kind of thing.
Different ways to look at that.
What I'm not aware of, you know, those kind of things. That's, I think we gotta make sure we're enticing people that we show a broad spectrum of opportunities here, whether we're talking about restaurants, dining, activities, other businesses, industrial, to try to show it all encompassing so that we can reach more people. Be interested in it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Cast a wide net.
Just our restaurants itself.
For sure. Yeah. Anything further? All right, Tony, let's move on to new business then.
I just have two things I wanted to bring up tonight that we've referenced over the months and years over here. I think, again, last month, somebody asked what was going on at 59 and West Bartlett Road. That's a proposal known as the Grasslands subdivision over at the Crown property that they presented in front of the village board. I think that was just last week at its last meeting. 81 single-family homes, 60 active adult ranch houses, 90 active adult duplexes, 116 townhomes. That's a total of 347. And I was close. I told you 300 or 350 homes proposed, so it's 347. They proposed 6 acres of commercial on the corner, of which only 4 is usable. And the board's response was that they wanted them to work on seeing if they could add some additional commercial land to that corner, being a good commercial corner that it is. So just wanted to mention that. I know commissioners had asked over the months what's happening over there. And so that's something that is still in the works. Will be coming back before the village board in relative short order. And one more site that we've been seeking economic development for a number of years that we call Site E. It's the village-owned property at the corner of Railroad and Berteau. And Mr. Rafidia, the owner and redeveloper of Streets of Bartlett, has proposed a 5-story building over there, 5-story apartment building called Residences at Bartlett Station. It went before the Plan Commission. I don't know if that was last week or 2 weeks ago. The Plan Commission did not recommend in favor, but the Zoning Board of Appeals did. And so again, that's kind of winding its way through the system. Staff is working with them to see, what, if any, modifications might be made. And that's another one that's actively coming onto the agenda. So we've been talking a lot about a lot of industrial expansion here and a lot of new restaurants coming in and other projects, but those are 2 residential projects in the works, is a good way to put it. Neither one of them approved, neither one of them not approved, but winding their way through the process right now.
Sorry, the 5-story building was on Railroad and what?
Berteau.
Yeah, it's the east of the 3 apartment buildings in Town Center. It's owned by the village. It was the last piece that New England Builders never developed. So it's at Railroad and Berteau, just 500 feet east of the metro station. We call it Site E, it was identified as Opportunity Site E in the downtown TOD plan that was adopted in 2016. Another thing we worked on through the EDC and a steering committee back in 2015 and 2016.
Tony, what's happening at Bartlett Tap? Did they have damage from the storm or something that there's been a lot of work over there?
Not specifically from the storm. There had been some general deterioration while it was unoccupied.
Okay.
There had been some leaks, some other damage done, and the owner of it is, I'm going to backtrack and say Scott and I have been pushing that building really hard to potential users. We've probably brought a dozen people through there, and ultimately people we're seeing the shape that it was in and not necessarily wanting to make those large outlays just to bring it up to code. So the owner of it hired some contractors to do some basics.
Good.
And they are there working on it. They were there every day last week, working on it. So that's what's going on over there. Some deep cleaning and repairs. As far as I know Scott's going to answer. I know about cleaning up the interior mostly, the upstairs.
He's going to put the bottom in show condition, buy new restaurant equipment and kitchen equipment, and I didn't get a chance to speak to Tony about it because it was like 5 o'clock tonight, but I spoke to the owner, and he's going to take a little bit of time off from showing people because, quite frankly, there wasn't a lot to show. It wasn't very nice. So he's going to fix it up and put some money and investment into it, and at that point, he's going to field a few more calls and call a few people back. And if it's not moved by sometime in August, he's going to hire a broker.
Good.
I was at Delcon, which of course is the building next door, and he was just ranting about the back of the building and how terrible it was and overgrown and trees and it looks bad when these people park there. And why isn't anything being done about it? And I actually drove back there and
It's not a good property, but he's actually starting the process, so we're encouraged by that.
Anything else? Anyone else have any questions for Tony? Scott? All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you.